Most people don't know how powerful FL Studio is, so in this video I'm going to show you 3 styles of beats you can make inside of FL Studio that makes beat making super simple. Let's hop straight into it. We're going to utilize sampling here. So the first thing is finding samples. I'd recommend you guys go on YouTube and look for the different playlists for samples like Kanye West samples, soul samples, Alchemist samples. Just look up on YouTube and then you guys can find ways to grab those playlists. There's also hiphopisred.com. That's a really good one. There's another website that can introduce you into a ton of YouTube records called samplet.io. So just get out there and just spend a day or two looking for samples, drum breaks, look for samples. That's the main thing. You guys got to build up your ammo. Okay, so firstly, we're going to go to some samples that I found recently. These are really dope. And the playlist is called Samples and Stuff That I Like. And I just really like this sound selection here. So let's go to this one. So what we're going to do here is the first step is right click, open up and slice. This is my new style of sampling and I'll show you guys why. If you double click and slice, we can now zoom in. And basically anytime we hit the letter M, it will create a vertical slice. And so my workflow here is I'll hit play, I'll hit M and then hit enter so that every time I hit M, it basically creates a new slice. And I'll show you guys how it becomes playable. So basically I have a MIDI controller plugged in, but I'll show you guys if you don't have a MIDI controller. So without further ado, let's hit play within slice X and just hit M. So that first chop, we can't really, there's no count in. So let's just hit M and hit enter. Okay. So let's go back. So I usually slice at 2-bar increments. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2. But on this video, we're going to slice in 1-bar increments. So I'll show you guys how to count the music. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and slice 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 and 3 and 4 and slice and 2 and 3 and 4 and slice and 2 and 3 and 4 and okay, so we have enough slices. Now the next thing is go to snap to grid, go to snap to 0 crossings. We want to do this because this prevents clicks and pops. Without it, you're basically going to be snapping to random values. And anytime you go from like 0 to a random value, it just goes crazy. Or if you go from like 1 to -1, you know, in a value, it just goes crazy on your speakers. It doesn't know what to do. So you got to make sure you snap to 0 crossings so that the speakers know to reset back to 0. That's the non-sciencey way to explain it. So all I'm doing is just moving these markers. Now, every sample is not going to have these pointy parts of the audio where they have a clear kick drum and a clear cymbal and a clear downbeat. So you're not going to be able to just eyeball it like this. And that's why I have different tutorials about how to sample, because it gets very granular sometimes. Okay, so everything looks good. So now I can play these chops with my MIDI controller. If you don't have a MIDI controller, you can right click here where it says typing keyboard to piano keyboard and go to where it says slice X. Okay, you just have to change the octave depending on where your chop is. So in this case, just hit reset and then right click and then select slice. So now I can use my MIDI controller to trigger these. Okay, so I'm not worried about the tempo right now. We just want to get a general, you know, the general movement. So I'd recommend you guys to start off at a lower BPM like 82, 84. You don't have to be too particular. Also, if you guys hear it playing, go to your channel rack, hit Control X, because right there it has a MIDI. So what I want to do is just listen to the metronome and play my chops. And just see, does it line up? See how it doesn't line up? But it can line it up if depending on how I play the chop. So that's not perfectly, so this is where people get confused. They think everything needs to be time stretched all the time, not necessarily. So let's record, let's go to song mode here and we're gonna record me playing. And again, you could right click here and select slice X and type with your typing keyboard. So I'm just gonna do different styles here. Okay, so all I want to do here is just double click. Let's just hit Alt Q because it was hard to hear the metronome. And what we're going to do is if you guys have a template, just click drop down, go to default. So see how I did not time stretch the sample? Okay, so now we have there, you know, I'm trying not to teach everything about everything because it will get confusing, but there are 4 layers to beat making. There's a top line layer. This is your memorable melody. You have the harmony section. This is your chords, your glue to your track. You have the contrast layer. This is your density to a track. And then you have what's called the rhythm section. This is your drums. Okay. So we have to ask ourselves, what do we have in the sample that we just chopped? We have chords. That's the harmony. There's a contrast layer. There's a bass in there. And that da, da, da. So we have all of these 3 things: top line, harmony, and contrast. Now the sample doesn't have too many drums, so we can now find drums and overlay it over top of the sample. So here's where you guys want to look for your drum break samples. Let's go to drum breaks, and I recommend stuff from Beat Butcher. Tammuz has really good drum kits. The Alchemist has kits. Cooking Soul has drum kits. Who else has drum breaks? I'm trying to think. AJ Hall has some drum breaks. Okay, you guys could chop up. So let's go for Beat Butcher. So here's, these drums feel like the era. So I'm going to use drums that feel like the era. Let's right click, open and slice. The reason we're opening up and slice is because now we can play the same exact way. Okay, let's hit Control X and let's just kind of practice on the drums here. Again, you could right click the typing keyboard, go to layout slice if you want to use your typing keyboard. So I like the first couple hits. Let's record this. Okay, so now we have that. I'll show you guys another way we can double click in here. And you can hit Alt Q, and I have this in a different video where to download these. But if you go to our Discord, discord.gg/busyworksbeats, you could download what are called the MPC quantized files. Basically, when you hit Alt Q, you could load up what's called a template. Click this groove template icon, and now we need to navigate back to the scores folder. So go up a couple categories, go to where it says scores, and let's see where is this folder that it's pulling from. I'll show you guys how to do this on Mac. So on Mac, we need to right click, show in Finder so that we can get to our file explorer. Go to your applications here, go to FL Studio, right click, show package contents, go to contents, go to resources, go to FL, go to data, and then go to patches and go to scores. And once you download the MPC file from our Discord, discord.gg/busyworksbeats, look for the drum kits channel. And then download this, and you just drag and drop it into this area here and just double click and it will make its own folder. So I have more details about that in my other videos, but what we're going to do is load up what's called the MPC 50% quantize. So this is not a normal quantize that you would get in FL Studio. So let's open up the MPC quantize. Now the drums don't need much touching up, but if you guys want more of that like 90s vibe, you could load up the MPC quantize. And just mess with the start time, and it will nudge the notes around to lock better to this new timing grid. Okay, so I just realized the sample has like a hi-hat in it. So we really don't need hi-hats. So let me show you guys how to transform this simple boom bap beat. So you're pretty much done the beat. At this point, you're just going to add effects and a bass line. So I'll show you guys how to transform this into trap pretty quickly. Let's save this as a new file just so we don't get too crazy with everything. Let's take this section here, the harmony section, and what we need to do is print this to audio. So let's highlight up here, hit Control, and right click, consolidate track from time selection. We're just going to hit We're going to hit start. So this will convert it to audio. Now we can double click here, go to mode, stretch mode. In the case that we change the BPM, it will stay the same. I forgot what BPM we even had. So let's Control Z that thing. Boom, 82. Okay. But what we need to do though is open this up in Fruity Slice. But before you do this in Fruity Slice, you need to go to the BPM that is your target BPM. So I can't say this enough. People skip the step and wonder why this stuff sounds wrong. Okay, so we need to double click, go to mode, stretch mode. And now we need to, let's say, double the BPM for trap. So we're at 164, let's just say. Now what I need to do is right click, and I need to make this double the length because now we've doubled the tempo. So it just sounds faster. Let's right click here. Now the max here is 4 bars, but you can left click the time knob to just manually make that longer. And now if I go to the metronome, it should line up. Okay, so now we have everything. And one little edit I'll make is just this last hit. I'm just going to slice that and just turn it down a little bit with the clip gain, just because it's a little loud. That's not a mandatory step. This is just because it's sample. Now we're going to go in, and now we need to reconsolidate this into audio because now we're at a new BPM. And basically what we're doing is we're giving the file new tempo information, new tempo metadata. So now that it knows we're not at 82 anymore, we're at 164. So we need to reprint this to audio. So let's right click, consolidate track, and create a new audio. So now this new file knows that we're at 164 BPM. So the next step will work more seamlessly. If you don't do this step, it won't work the same way. So double click, go to mode, stretch mode in this case, just in case we change the BPM. But let's right click and let's open the sample in Fruity Slicer. So I learned this from Wonder Girl. Click this drop down. Let's go to beat, slice by the beat. We're going to pull up what's called the attack curvature. And we're going to go to the gear icon, go to the wrench tool just to turn up to compensate the volume loss. Let's hit Control L, send this to the mixer. So essentially what we've done is used what's called Fruity Slicer to slice up the audio into equal chops. And it creates that Drake effect. Like started from the bottom, now we here. Okay, so like that. Let's hit Control X. Let's move to a new pattern, hit Control V. And what this does in like theory is basically it allows us to override the groove of the sample so that our drums can sound more dominating than the groove from the actual sample. A lot of people, they let their samples just be super loose and they wonder why their drums don't hit. It's because the drums aren't dictating the groove. Long story short, here's how it sounds. So the more you pull up the attack curvature, the more you're going to get this swelling effect. And now we can add our trap drums. So let's go to quickly add our drums. If you guys want some of my go-to drums, I have about 8 or 10, I forget how many go-to drums, and I have these on my, just go to busyworksbeats.com/FL Studio. Once you sign up with your email, be sure to go to the Google Drive folder and go to where it says sounds and look for the go-to sounds. So all we need is just a kick, hi-hat, snare, very basic stuff. Okay, and I'll show you guys how quick we can make this into a trap beat. Now, am I going to make the craziest trap beat right now? Not necessarily, but I just want to show you guys how fast we could do this. Okay, and we're still using the same sample. So let's right click, fill each 2 steps. And now let's add our drums in here. Put the clap on the 3 and the 7 count. So it's 1, 2, clap, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2. Let's add a kick in here. I feel like this beat would sound better with an 808. Okay, so now you have your trap version of the. And now the cool part is here we can do things like mangle the pitch shift. We could also mess with what's called the time stretch, but this will make it into more of a triplet sounding. Now we have a whole different vibe. And remember, the sample has bass. So what we can do now is go to the mixer and just simply EQ out the bass because it's clashing with the 808 a little bit. So let's add a high pass filter. Left click to change that curvature. And now our 808 has more room to breathe. simple, you have a trap beat. And again, you can go back to the Fruity Slicer and just do different things like mess with the attack and decay curvature. So if you want more of a Drake sound, you would pull up the decay curvature. Okay, so now we have a trap beat. Again, not the craziest, but it's a vibe. And lastly, let me show you guys how to create lo-fi. So lo-fi, we're gonna go back to the audio here. We're just gonna use the original, cuts that we had, chops that we had. Let's mute all this. Now lo-fi is gonna be at 82 BPM. So let's pull it back to 82. So lo-fi is really a processing step more than it is like necessarily like, you guys know the production steps. It's more of a sound effect at this point. Let's go to our channel rack, highlight these sounds, hit Control L, send these to the mixer. So firstly, we want to start with the sample. And what I'm going to show you guys how to do is create the RC20 sound without buying RC20. So let's find the sample, which is right here. Let's open up the plugin Fruity Delay 3, or like why Fruity Delay. This isn't a delay, but basically when you turn the dry level down, turn the feedback level down, turn the delay time down, everything else becomes an effect. So there's a lot of effects in here. We can do chorusing, we could do flanger, we could do pitch wobble, we could do diffusion, which is like a chorus, a slight chorus. We could do feedback, distortion, we could do limiting. So you could do everything, filter, downsample. People don't even know this exists. So now we have this. So let's first start with the limiter, because I think this gives it that like smacky sound. Also, the limiter might be better for the drums, but let's just use a little bit of it here. And let's do this. Let's add some time modulation here. This is the RC20 effect, the wobble effect. We can also add what's called stereo offset. So it's a time difference between the left and right here. Basically widening out the sound. And then you can manage the stereo field here. Let's mess with the diffusion. So it's like a chorusy pitch wobble, but it's very fast. It's hard to hear diffusion. So what I'm going to do is right click. We're going to create an automation, or excuse me, we're going to link to a controller. I'm going to use my MIDI controller here. And I'm just going to record. You can right click here, turn on automation. I'm just going to record me moving this knob. This is not a big detail. It's just something I noticed that I want to turn over time. It adds like a small time discrepancy. Okay, so it's really hard to teach that detail because that detail is so microscopic that it's very hard to teach. So what I'll do here is I'll move these drums to a different channel. That way they're not triggered. So all this like gray stuff is me moving my automation, my mod wheel, my fader. Okay, so let's work on these drums. So we're going to do the same thing for the drums here. Let's open up Fruity Delay 3 and let's go to dry level, turn it down, feedback, turn it down, delay time, turn it down, and everything else becomes an effect. I like to start with saturation first, turn this up. Just so you guys can hear. Here's before. Here's after. It adds like a crunch. Now also I love the limiter. It sounds really good, especially for like SP404 type sounds. So let's pull that up. It's a very aggressive limiter, but it sounds very musical. Let's add some time modulation here. Drums are a little bit harder to hear these fine details, so don't expect to like be like, oh, I hear that effect. This is really me knowing my sound design here. And let's add some downsampling here. Now the values in the top left, I'll exaggerate it so you guys can hear. To prevent that ring, we could add what's called a low pass filter. Pull this cutoff down. But we don't want to cut out all the frequencies, so I recommend you guys just be very subtle with that. So that's what lo-fi means, low fidelity. We could do the same thing with the sample. Lower that sample rate. But this will add artifacts and like very shiny frequencies to your mix. So use this sparingly. I'm going to show you guys a different plugin that I really trust to downsample. It's called Kilohearts. Let's group these into one channel. Right click, route to this track only. I'm going to open up what's called the Kilohearts Bit Crush. We need to turn up what's called the D to A converter. DAC quality. That basically gets rid of that ringy noise. And now this has a smoother downsample feel to me. So now they're going through this. Now, if you really want to make it sound old, you could pull your stereo with a mono, stereo shaper mono. So click here to add these buttons in your mixer and just turn this knob to the right. So now everything's mono. That's if you want a super lo-fi sound. But keep in mind, there will be no left and right effects if you make everything mono. And that's how simple it is to turn your stuff into lo-fi in FL Studio. You don't need to buy a bunch of plugins. If you want more like oomph into the beat, I might add a fruity limiter. Let's go to the saturator here. Now this track does not need to be super aggressive, but you would just pull the saturation down, turn up your gain. Now remember, lo-fi is not meant to be super harmonic, so you got to be really careful with this step. And basically all this purple is we're shaving off the pointy parts to make it more smooth. Let's see what happens if we pull it mono. It was very vibey. Now that last hit, I'm going to turn it down. This is too loud. And now you have your lo-fi jam. So I showed you guys how to create 3 different styles very simply in FL Studio. To learn more, go to busyworksbeats.com/betterbeatmaker. This course will show you guys how to go from beginner to intermediate, and I'll show you all the steps in between. This is built for beat makers, not necessarily people who want to do just compositions, for beat makers. Go to busyworksbeats.com/betterbeatmaker. I'll leave a link below. Peace out, guys. Subscribe if you're new. Share with a friend. Peace.